Okay, so partnership with God. That's a pretty common phrase, right? But what does it actually mean in practice? Well, I came across this really cool framework that breaks it all down into a dynamic four-part relationship. It's a model that goes way beyond just the surface level, so let's dive in and check it out together.
All right, first things first, we've got to get on the same page about what partnership even means here. The source material uses this specific Korean term, dongyok. And this is super important because it's not just, working together. It's talking about a synergistic relationship where 1 plus 1 equals like 100. The outcome is just way bigger than what either partner could do on their own. It's all built on a common purpose, and that idea of synergy, well, that's kind of the engine that drives this whole thing.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll look at four key parts of this partnership: action, dedication, separation, and gratitude. And then, at the end, we'll see how they all fit together in one unified framework.
Okay, let's jump right into the first one, partnership through action. And the basis for this idea is this absolutely incredible story about Jonathan's surprising victory. So picture this, the battle at Mchyene. The first thing you notice is how completely lopsided this is. You've got Jonathan and his armor bearer. That's it, just two guys. And they decide they're going to launch a surprise attack on the entire Philistine army. I mean, it's a crazy plan, right? It's impossible. Their strategy wasn't about military tactics, it was about pure trust. And what happens? The source explains that God steps in, total chaos breaks out in the enemy camp, and somehow Israel gets this completely impossible victory.
And this quote right here, this is what was going through Jonathan's head. It's the belief that made him do something so bold. The Lord's rescue is not dependent on numbers. He was just totally convinced that the results were up to God's power, not his his army of two.
So the big takeaway here for this part of the framework is that the partnership gets started with that first human action. That one little step of faith, no matter how small or crazy it looks, is what opens the door for divine power to come rushing in and do something, extraordinary. All right, that leads us right into our second part, partnership through dedication. Now we're kind of shifting gears here. We're moving from a single, bold action to something that's more of a continuous, lifelong commitment. And the source calls this idea the living sacrifice. So the idea here comes from the book of Romans, and it's this call to offer our bodies as a living sacrifice. Now, this isn't some kind of one-time thing. The source explains it as dedicating your entire life, your time, your talents, your mind, your energy, everything, to God's purpose. The whole goal is to totally shift how you live, so you're trying to figure out and follow God's will instead of just, going with the flow and copying the world's patterns. And this verse is really the foundation for this whole dimension. It completely reframes our lives as an act of worship. It's suggesting that how you use your body, your mind, and your time, day in and day out, that is the most real, the most authentic worship you can possibly offer. So, to put it simply, partnership in this sense isn't just about what you do for an hour on Sunday. No, it's expressed through the total, all-in dedication of your entire life. It's not just something you do, it's a whole way of being.
Okay, now we're getting into a part that can be a little more challenging. Partnership through separation. And this idea is built on this really urgent call for God's people to literally leave the city of Babylon.
Now, the context here from the book of Jeremiah is super important. Babylon is described as this golden cup that's making the whole world drunk on sin and corruption. So the command to come out of her is a serious call to action. And there are two big reasons why. First, so you don't get tangled up in its destructive ways. And second, so you don't get hit with the judgment that's coming. The whole point is to live a holy life, something that looks different and is set apart from the culture around you.
And you can just feel the urgency in the words here. Run for your lives. This isn't a gentle suggestion like, hey, maybe think about doing things differently. No, it's a desperate plea. It's framing this separation as a necessary act of spiritual survival.
So what does this all mean for partnership? Well, it means it's not passive. It means you have to actively look at the world around you, at the values being pushed, and make a conscious, and sometimes a really, really hard, choice to step away from things that clash with divine principles. It's basically a call to be intentionally countercultural.
Okay, let's move on to our final piece of the puzzle. And this one really provides the fuel for the whole relationship, partnership through gratitude. This comes from a really powerful song of thanksgiving written by King David.
So the story behind this song is super personal. David writes it right after he was rescued from what he calls a pit of despair. I mean, he was in a crisis that almost killed him. He gives God all the credit for saving him, and his response is just this total transformation. His grief actually turns into joyful dancing, and he promises to give thanks to God forever.
And this verse just captures that emotional whiplash so beautifully. You turned my wailing into dancing. It's such a powerful picture of transformation, right? Going from the absolute depths of sorrow, that sackcloth, to being wrapped up in pure joy. That right there is the heart of what a grateful response looks like.
And this is so important. Gratitude isn't just a feeling that you have sometimes. In this framework, it is an active practice. The partnership is literally sustained, it's fueled by you actively remembering, celebrating, and giving thanks for the grace you've been shown.
Okay, so we've looked at these 4 different parts of partnership. Now let's bring them all together and see how they lock in to form one single, unified framework.
So when you lay it all out, you get these 4 pillars. See how it works? It starts with action. You gotta step out in faith. Then it's deepened by dedication. You commit your whole self. It's protected by separation. You consciously choose a different path. And finally, it's all powered and sustained by gratitude, responding with thanks. Each piece builds on the next, creating this really complete dynamic model of what partnership looks like. And that brings us to the big takeaway. This framework paints a picture of partnership that is so active, so intentional, and has so many different sides to it. It's not just one simple thing. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Of these 4 dimensions, action, dedication, separation, or gratitude, which one gives you the most surprising, or maybe even the most challenging, new perspective on what it really means to be in a partnership?